Genshin Impact is a game I was familiar with for sure. However, I found myself only picking it back up when a new region was just around the corner, play it, then subsequently dropping it after playing through the story. And because of this, I felt as it was too late to cover my opinion on its story, since it's been ages since the ending of the last Archon quest, or I just wasn't experienced with covering stories. However, now that all changes. With the fiery new region of Natlan finally dropping and me actually playing Genshin Impact somewhat frequently, I am excited to give my thoughts on Genshin's most recent story quest. I thoroughly enjoyed Fontane and absolutely fell in love with characters such as Furina and Navia, so I cannot wait to see what the new region of Natlan has to offer. Can it capture my attention with its Archon as much as it did with Furina? Does it have a character that fuels my intrigue like Navia? Watch this video to find out. This is my thoughts on and review for the land of Pyro and the region of war, Natlan.
Natlan is on the verge of destruction. It's very possible our nation has less than a year before total devastation.
Natlan's story immediately takes off in its first town, village, tribe? I'm just gonna call it tribe, where we encounter arguably, if not the most important character in this section of the story, Kachina.
I don't have time to sit around and wait.
But if you two leave, I'll be the only one left.
Currently, she's in a conversation with two people where they mention the pilgrimage and how they need to do well in it, establishing the importance of the pilgrimage almost immediately, which is a good thing since it's the main event for Kachina's section, alongside the mention of an ancient name which is spoke to be like an important something that not everyone gets. The more the conversation goes on, the more we understand that Kachina needs a team to participate in the pilgrimage, pretty much, and the three of them is not enough to compete in the pilgrimage or do well in it. And something I picked up almost immediately was that they speak to Kachina like they are using the fact that she's just a child to their advantage. They obviously don't want to hurt her feelings, and so tries to make justifications in just abandoning and not trusting in Kachina, even though she has the fabled ancient name, and Kachina agrees, telling her old teammates to go out and get a good team, quotation marks, showing that she compares herself to other ancient name bearers, which to me shows that Kachina just doesn't trust herself. She doesn't believe that she is strong enough because of the other ancient name bearers around her. She thinks she should shape herself to fit an ideal warrior that she thinks is right because of the fact that she looks up to the other people and who bears ancient names as well, instead of seeing why the ancient name was given to her. As she keeps saying, she is too weak. Anywho, Kachina notices our little eavesdropping presence and walks up to us, and we talk. We get information of the pilgrimage, which Kachina explains as some sort of tournament, which is split up into two phases. Team Capture the Flag-esque game, a bracket-type tournament, along with saying the ancient name is sort of like a title. After thinking about it for a little bit, the Travler and Paimon asks to join Kachina's team, to her surprise, but sadly reveals that only someone from Natlan is allowed to participate. But says she appreciates the offer, saying us that cruelly, no one wants to join her team, with the main reason being that Kachina just isn't strong enough, again, showing her distrust and lack of confidence in her strength. After some smooth, confident talk from the Travler, Kachina asks to learn from us, because in her eyes we are the exact person she wants to become. We agree and start the section of world building, which is entertaining because of Kachina's personality and her own little fun facts, about either the dancing in the Children of the Echoes, and the facts about Saurians that live there. Our tour leads us to a chunk of crystal rock, or whatever that is, where she explains more about Natlan's interesting perspective on deities and gods. They believe in things called Wyobs, which dwell below, and the Pyro Archon stays above. During this lesson on Natlan's culture, we meet the goat Pakal, who asks to see our identity like any normal person would. Wow. Seriously, I love some of Genshin Impact characters to death, but sometimes they're a little bit too trusting of us. Anyways, back to the plot. Pakal finds out that we are the famous Travler in Paimon, and wow, I should have introduced Pakal first. Anyways, Pakal is pretty much the chief of the village, or tribe. Each tribe has their own chief, so that's basically what he is, and Pakal just wanted to ask us because he's protective of Kachina. Anyways, back to the plot. Pakal finds out we're the famous Travler in Paimon, and then changes his demeanor from a defensive and cautious to a full of shock and awe, giving us an explanation on the ancient names as an apology of doubting us, which he fully has the right to do, by the way. But anyways, he explains that the ancient name is like an heirloom, which is given to a very select few, and only when chosen by the Wayub can they hold the title of the ancient name bearer. They are not only ways to inspire future name bearers, but also to preserve the stories of the past ancient name bearers. Anyways, after that, it's the journey to the tournament ground, where we get an admittedly cute scene of Kachina and the Travler, where we show her our collection of elemental powers. Too bad we can't switch on them by in-game, but like, cool. But something of note is that we can't use the Pyro element as the Travler. This is later speculated to be because that the Pyro Archon is not a god. They are in fact human, which is a very interesting direction to head to. It's pretty much the opposite of Farina. Last time it was a mystery about Farina's true identity, and now we learned that they are human right away. So it mainly depends on what happened to the old Pyro Archon for like this. Anyways, at the tournament ground, we meet another titular character for this section, and probably the one we've spent the second most time with, Mulani.
Heyo! I'm Mulani, a guide from the people of the spring, at your service. It's time for the grand finale! Ready?
Mulani, as soon as she enters, waves around her personality front and center for us to view. It's obvious to us that she's the kind of character who has a strong bond with Kachina. One of the other characters they establish as Kachina's friends, Kanich, tells us about the Night Warden Wars, which is an event where the winners of the pilgrimage head off to whatever place the ever-so-persistent Abyss lies and fights them, and that the Pyro Archon has the power to resurrect someone in battle. If I take the words correctly, if I take the words literally, fell in battle, it could mean being lost or something, I don't know, called the Ode of Resurrection. This sounds OP at first until you read the fine print. The revival only works on the fallen warriors if their party returns alive, which can include just a single person, but at least someone needs to return to Natlan alive. And only ancient name bearers can be resurrected, which makes it a whole less overpowered. During all this talk, it seems to click to everyone that Kachina is still a solo team, and Mulani, in a pretty nice moment of characterization, shows her unwavering kindness by handing her teammates into Kanich's hands and goes to form an unbeatable duo with Kachina while saying no one fights alone, an old Natlan saying that I think will show up more in the story. I think the conversation between Kachina and Mulani is full of character. For the two of them, again, Kachina showing her self-doubt in herself by asking, "What if I drag you down?" Mulani responds in a kind and energetic response, which does rise the confidence of Kachina. The two are a great dynamic to be paired with and entertaining to watch as the story unfolds. So far, I'm far more interested in the two of them than Linny and Lynette cope in another scene about Kachina being sad and not trusting herself in her own judgment later. There is a lot of this, by the way, like they really tried to hammer this home. A little bit of subtlety would have been nice, but still. We finally arrive at the start of the pilgrimage and the beginning of round 1. The rules. It's basically a battle royale with many different things they need to collect being scattered around, and those who come back with a sufficient amount without being eliminated is allowed to pass on through the second round. After that small feel of what Natlan's story is going to be like, we enter the gameplay-heavy portion of the game, and I want to take this time to explain the gameplay aspect of Natlan and whether or not I found it to be an improvement or a downgrade. And I have to say, it's a huge improvement from Fontane and Sumeru. In the past story quests, we do pretty much nothing. Then we moved around from location to location, from cutscene to cutscene, and repeat until we get to the action-packed finale, where we beat up the final villain, whether that be a giant crybaby Gundam or a big blue whale. Natlan has quite some bits of exploration intertwined with the story quest. One of my rare complaints about Fontane was its lack of use of its map and its surrounding locations. We only went to the Opera Bequeathed. Am I saying that right? Opera Bequeathed. I'm gonna go with that. To the main city of Fontane and Spina di Rosula being sprinkled on in the middle, especially after Navia's portion of the story. That is a very small amount of Fontane's map, and while there are probably side quests that explore the nearby area, I do not care about any of those. So journeying through Natlan with Kachina was quite fun and made me want to explore further. There is a reason why Natlan is at 100% exploration now. The very same can be said for Mulani's quest, by the way, which also helps that Natlan is extremely easy to explore as well. With bodies of parent dinosaurs we get to yoink. Also, we have opportunities to use this characters in this quest as well. Out of the 3 new characters playable by Natlan's release, we are able to play as 2. Kachina 3 times, along with Mulani, who also has 3 trial sections. This makes it so those who are iffy on pulling for Mulani or building Kachina want to do these things if they have fun on them. Hoyoverse definitely saw what Honkai Star Rail was doing and took some notes, and thank God they did. Back to the story. In the Battle Royale, we get our first instance of playing other characters. Mulani, as soon as she touches down on the land, asserts herself in a leader-like position, instilling confidence and trust in her own power. And Kachina's, of course, saying that anyone that crosses their path can kiss their chances of winning goodbye. And as the Battle Royale continues, we see that exact same thing happen. Team after team gets wiped out by this formidable duo, showcasing not only Mulani's strength, but also Kachina's. As Mulani said quite some time ago, Kachina isn't lacking the talent or strength, but in confidence. Kachina and Mulani return to the stadium victorious, and both passing the first test, which leads us to the long-awaited tournament arc.
We're contestants too. Let us through.
This wouldn't be a review if it was all sunshines and rainbows and compliments and glory. So here's my first real problem with Natlan. Some other problems get very bigger later on, like for Kanich, for example, but this is the problem that gets put a spotlight on. Kachina's conversation with the 2 Natlan warriors that lost in round 1 of the pilgrimage. I don't really understand this scene. I get there are people who wouldn't be happy if they lose, and I understand this is the biggest honor for a warrior in Natlan. But this is a yearly thing, right? Just try again next time. And I'm sure anyone raised in Natlan would understand they lost, and there's no such thing as playing fair with the Abyss. If they lost due to cunning planning, then they lost. Hell, I'm pretty sure some other character says this very thing in the story. So why are they angry? These sore losers feel very foreign in Natlan, considering everything we know and will learn about Natlan. It feels very much like a poor way of making Kachina sad. But ignoring that, we can finally go into the battles, where I feel Natlan kinda peaks.
You must be Kachina. You know, people told me I got lucky in the draw, but I beg to differ. There are no coincidences in the arena. If you're standing here, it means you're strong, no matter what anyone says.
The dialogue in this battle speaks to me on what this entire tournament is trying to say for the character of Kachina. She has the mindset that everyone helped her to get this far, which in a sense is true. Mulani has played a part in getting her to her current position, but Kachina is not focusing on the fact that she also helped Mulani. She helped scale that enormous, monstrous mountain with ease. She helped in battles and defeated foes herself alongside Mulani. She's more than strong enough to be considered a warrior, but yet she doesn't pay attention to that because she doesn't realize it. She doesn't have the confidence to consider herself strong. There is no mention of her own power, just those who helped her get this far. This is why I think a one-on-one tournament setting is a great place to push Kachina to understand the truth within the lie she made herself believe. The fact that she isn't strong enough alone. After playing and defeating the first opponent, sadly we go into a montage So no gameplay sections, but it is quite fun. Not watching Kachina get dropkicked, no, but watching her beat each opponent until we reach the semifinals.
Where'd you come from, kid? Think you've got what it takes to go to war? Hate to break it to you, but it won't be easy to get through me.
While the first round was meant to introduce the concept of what they are trying to speak to Kachina using their opponent, this second opponent is a great opponent to pick Katrina against overall in terms of gameplay and story. Our opponent is like an embodiment of what everyone thinks Kachina is. A kid who doesn't have what it takes to go into the field of battle, underestimating her at every turn. For the gameplay sides of things, we have a character that focuses on you using Kachina's unique ability to scale high places in Natlan. Her beating this opponent embodies the opinion of others and shows just how much of a formidable opponent she is. However, a lingering feeling of unworthiness and lack of confidence still reside deep within Katrina. It's something she has to overcome herself, not to show the entire world her strength, and she's already accomplished that in the semifinals, but to show herself that she's strong. The only thing Kachina lacks is confidence.
You've come so far. Still nervous?
Mulani is a warrior that Kachina compares herself to all the time, or at least one of them. She always has this picture in her mind of what a warrior should be, and she never fits that definition. When her teammate asks to leave for a better chance, she agrees with their preposterous statement, saying that she isn't strong like the other ancient name bearers. Mulani is another ancient name bearer, a warrior that Kachina sees is better than herself. Hell, the first few words of the cutscenes is, "Even if I lose, I won't have any regrets." The first thing to notice is that her mind is set on losing. Her first thoughts are, if I lose, not I will win. This is because of the lack of strength she believes to have to be able to beat Mulani. But Mulani counter-argues, telling her that she doesn't have time to be modest, and that Kachina wants to win this far more than Mulani herself does. This is why I love Mulani and Kachina's dynamic. Mulani knows Kachina, and she understands the truth within the lie that Kachina believes. Kachina, in this instance, believes that she isn't as strong as Mulani. She isn't worthy of bearing an ancient name or winning against her, and that she doesn't have enough strength to be able to lend a help on the battlefield during the Night Warden Wars. But Mulani disagrees. One of the very first things she says about Kachina is that Kachina always has the strength, but just doesn't have the confidence. She is determined to show her that fact, which is excellently demonstrated in this match. This is a fully animated 3-minute long cutscene, excellently animated by the Genshin team, by the way, with creative choreography and fun visuals, and it is not the only long animated cutscene in this story quest. More on that later. The battle between Kachina and Mulani is quite tense when I first watched it, mostly because of the fact that we did not know how Kachina would do against the prodigy of the people of the Springs. The only time we saw Mulani's power was in the first round of the pilgrimage, where she and Kachina dominated any group they come across. So this is the first time we get to see Mulani's power pretty much in action, and it's against Kachina of all people. The round begins with them fairly equal in terms of skill and power, with Mulani seemingly getting the upper hand by bombing Kachina with her surfboard. What actually is that thing Mulani carries? Why does the surfboard explode? That's odd. Anyways, her bomb board seemingly explodes right on top of Kachina, with the dust dispersing all over the air, concealing our view of our little fighter. Mulani stands in an upright and confident position, believing that to be the final blow, until... In a roaring fashion, she bursts out from the cloud of dust, her drill firmly placed in her hands, which had grown massively in size. Using all her strength, she chucks the drill at the off-guard Mulani, who barely dodges in time. Mulani tries to quickly recover from the impact, but Kachina uses this moment to appear behind her at blistering speeds and jabs Mulani with her spear, resulting in a knockout, the victory going to Kachina. This victory has a big and upfront meaning for Kachina. She has beaten someone she thought was leagues above her, and during the entire battle they were equal or relative in strength. There was no external help, there was no third party to assist, and in a one-on-one battle with Mulani, Kachina had come out victorious. Kachina had the strength to win, all she needed was the confidence to be able to trust it. So, I don't know if I've talked about the Pyro Archon before, like, at all, here, but, like, here it is. Mavuika, do you like her? Well, so far, she has spoken, like, absolutely no dialogue. None to enrich or invite you into her character, and the only thing she says is that she has pride for those that are going to fight the Abyss. Okay? You might think that's a pretty odd thing to say. You have the rest of the quest to go over and you're complaining about a character that didn't get enough screen time. Just wait until the quest is over. Yes, look, Mavrika would have been fine, would have been an okay Archon. If the Archon before her was not Furina, I came in expecting the same level as Furina's introduction scene, and not that. Although I do believe that Mavuika does have potential to be on the same level of Furina, I don't like how they almost entirely wasted her introduction scene when comparing her to Furina. Like, was the Furina writers cooking for Katrina or something? And, like, I get it, like, oh hey, look at that, an Archon that's smart and doesn't act like a goddamn fucking child, but, like, personality-wise, just, there's nothing there. It's just serious, and, like, yeah, again, like, someone tied with the political spectrum is fine. I mean, Furina was that, but, like, no one talks about that anymore, but whatever. But, like, it's just not there. There's no personality to link yourself to. There's nothing to, like, go with. Like, they could very much be doing something with that, but, like, so far there aren't. And this is a review for the 5.01. So it's just overall, Mavrika is kinda wasted, but, like, anyways, ran over. Land of the Spring section. This section is quite slow, and that's not a diss to it at all. After all, we just had a tournament, like, section, so we've gotta have a moment to relax, you know. The best part of the quest was definitely about learning more about Mulani. She's a character who so far was pretty much a sole character that linked well with Kachina, so getting to know a deeper personality was fun to unfold. However, the main thing we seem to focus on is actually a character, Atea. First introduced as Mulani's neighbor, we get to know more about her and her fascinating history. She was once a legendary warrior who was famous all over Natlan for her love of hot springs. Don't ask me, that's what Mulani says. However, tragedy struck as she was struck badly and injured by an abyssal monster, which caused her to get an illness or sickening because of the lingering abyssal power that remained in her body, making her unable to continue fighting. And somehow, for some reason, that makes her unable to go into hot springs. They gave the explanation that it would further abyssal corruption, but, like, they don't explain why. Is it because of the hot temperature? Does it accelerate abyssal corruption? Or is it something in the hot springs that makes the abyssal corruption corrupt the body faster? Whatever, either way, after that whole ordeal, we find out Atea is allegedly getting better as she kept going to one of the abandoned hot springs, making the people in the springs think her sickness is getting better. After that, we get a nice hot spring scene where we learn more about Mulani and a little sprinkle of foreshadowing that Atea is not getting better, she's actually getting worse. Which I immediately guessed in, like, the party planning scene, but, like, you do you. After that, okay, look, I know this feels like a summary right now, but this part isn't that interesting in my opinion. Like, other than learning about Mulani's characterization and world building, there's really nothing here to, like, take apart or choose, like in Kachina's section. There's no personality main difference here that I get to point out. So anyways, we go shopping for decorations, where again we learn about Mulani's amazing skill of getting free discounts with her smooth words. She's very, very persuasive. I don't know why I said again. I'm pretty that was not me. Anyways, Atea and Atea's generous and heroic deeds. That's what I was gonna say. Words are hard. Anyways, one decoration scene later, we all go to bed, promising to surprise Altea, the newly furnished spring in the morning, because we spent far too long decorating the goddamn thing. However, while asleep, the Abyss attacks, so we help the people in the spring drive back the Abyss and stop the invasion from worsening. By the way, this is another section of the story where you actually get to play as Mulanni, which really surprised me, although I guess Genshin is starting to get generous with all the competition lately. Anyways, we go to the chief, who explains us the location of the Abyss Pylon, which acts as a gateway, meaning if that's gone, the Abyss cannot attack anymore. So we do that, and everything seems to return to normal until Travler spots an abyssal mage, or whatever that's called, coming down from the area of the abandoned spring. Worried about the renovations, we rush down to the spring, only to find Atea leaning on a rock with her arm holding her shoulder and coughing, announcing to Mulanni that she destroyed the pylon. However, it comes with the risk of badly damaging her body. The abyssal corruption was overtaking her body fast, and what happened next was not something I ever expected. They used the Traveler's ability to purify teardrops in Mondstadt. I completely forgot about that, and it was a really fun use of an ability that was criminally underused and overlooked, at least in my opinion. However, at the moment, I had a small problem with this, and technically I kind of do. And it's the fact that she's going to survive. I thought this was another scene where a magical ability had once again saved a character from a brink of death. But boy, was I wrong.
Your friend saved my life in that cave, and because of that, I got to enjoy this celebration with you all. But I'm just a few days shy of the end.
This was a very surprising decision, and the decision of keeping her to have a few short days of living was surprising to me. However, she still survives, so that's still a problem with me. However, her message does make me think there is something that this story is trying to portray overall, which might be Natlan's core messaging, in my opinion. And that is, while characters like Kachina have their own problems to overcome and challenge as like the small message of the arc or section, the overall message that is being conveyed is believing and trusting in the next generation, and someone like Atea, who felt immense regret for not being able to fight in the front lines, need not worry about the future, need not fight for it, as they have played a part in this battle. They just have to leave it to their successors, and they will take over and carry on the fight for however long they need to until they win. 2 days after the whole celebration, we get informed Kachina and her team returning from the battle. However, is unfortunately told Kachina fell in battle. That was truly disappointing. However, would be resurrecting soon. After hearing about that, we decided to head off to the Stadium of the Sacred Flame to watch Kachina come home and welcome her back in open arms. Swiftly, we meet up with Kanich, who, need I remind you, has had no time to give us a moment to know his personality or know what his tribe like. If you couldn't tell, I don't like Kanich's lack of screen time. It's not like I even care about Kanich, but you could have at least given him some time in the story missions. Like, I get it, like the trial whole side quest thing, and like it gives Primogems, so you're basically forced to do it. However, it's a side quest. Like, why not? He's like one of the main heroes in the story, so why is he not a part of the main story? Like, they better do something in 5.1. Anyways, in the stands, everyone bursts into the song of the Ode of Resurrection, I think it's called, and the Pyro-Archon goes Super Saiyan and enters the Sacred Flame. After mere moments, the Pyro-Archon leaves the Sacred Flame, and Mulanni silently squeals in anticipation to watch her friend come home for the first time from the Night Warden dance. And yet, Mavorika leaves the Sacred Flame without Kachina by her side. The stadium erupts into muttering and confused questions. This isn't how the resurrection process was supposed to go. Now remember the two idiots that were immensely overlooked in writing just to be used as a device where characters can come off as cool when counter-arguing them or saving Kachina when she's sad? Yeah, well, they're back. I hope you enjoy them. Again, my questions apply right here in this scene, just as I previously asked. And furthermore, they say Kachina is a girl who doesn't deserve to go to war, and I'm raising quotation marks. And I just don't get why they say this. Like, those who live and understand it, live in Natlan, understand and abide by the rules of the pilgrimage, right? Anyone who wins not only round 1, but round 2 is allowed to go fight the Abyss in the Night Warden Dance. So how has Kachina not proved herself? That's the whole point of the second round. It's a one-on-one and a balanced fight, so this disproves her whole argument of she got the jump on us. Her opponent in the second round were defensive, ready, and prepared for battle. Furthermore, is everyone that lost to Kachina not a warrior? Are they unfit for war? Is Mulani unfit for war and battle? Because last time I heard she was introduced as a prodigy. And if we ignore Mulani and Kachina's quote-unquote unfair techniques, the rest probably got in by not taking advantage of off-guard warriors, so they fall under the category of good warriors in the first scene where they confront Kachina, but now, by their standpoint and logic, they can't because they lost to someone who they were obviously weaker than. And lastly, they challenge the Pyro Archon and deliberately insults her, asking her why the rules of the nation suddenly stops working. And first of all, what? In an earlier scene, right before, Mulani literally states the history of the abyssal attacks and how they intentionally attacked areas that the tribes were weak against or had little to defense or relied a lot on. Meaning that these opponents of yours are crafty and intelligent, and by the way, must I remind you, it's history. Everyone should know this. It's literally the opponent they've been fighting against for like 500 years. Did you not think they were gonna attack the very thing that allows you to attack them with no consequences? Like, you're dealing with outside forces that are much bigger than just this is how the world works, lol. Hell, you're taking part in a ritual that can bring someone who died back to life, and you are not expecting something like that to be complex? You're in a war, and unexpected shit happens, yet these characters who are born and raised in warrior tribes, must I remind you, think that 1, being caught off guard is an excuse, number 2, that war is so straightforward, and number 3, the thing that revive you works for years and years with no trouble against a foe that corrupts everything and is stated to not have a brain but be intelligent. And number 2, they outwardly point out how they cannot resurrect people anymore and not expect them to no longer send anyone down to the abyss. Like, obviously, if the very thing that allows them to not have as much risk as normal breaks down, they would choose not to send any warriors to their deaths. Like, if a wheel on a car pops or stops working, like the engine, you don't just drive with a pop tire, do you? If you're normal, you would fix the pop tire, and this goes for many different things in the entire world. Like, did you really expect to get a spot on the team when you point out the thing that resurrects you from the dead stops working? Like, I get it, this rant is quite long, but like, these characters are so flat and one-dimensional. They don't act like people in Natlan and act like dumbasses who only serve to make the Pyro Archon cooler by refuting and arguing their points. Like, could you have not written anything better to drive the narrative further? The reason why I'm so angry is because this works for the people. They start doubting. Like, you're supposed to be a warrior nation, yet you think war is so simple that the Abyss will follow rules or they won't do unhandy tactics. And if you're gonna write characters like this, abide by the laws of the land you set up in the first place, which make believable points and arguments. Jesus. Anyways, after that annoying ass scene, Mavarika invites anyone who wants to help with the investigation of the failure of the Ode of Resurrection, including Mulani, who accepts right away. Once inside this really cool looking throne room with a giant fireplace in the middle, Mavarika explains how the Ode of Resurrection will be ineffective and useless until we fix the issue in the Night Kingdom, which I think is the home of the Abyss. Mulani, driven by her emotion sadness from losing Katrina, confronts the Pyro Archon. And while I just did jump the goddamn idiot duo for their even dumber claims for Mulani, I do understand her point and view and her perspective. Unlike the idiot duo that tried to put down Katrina using foolish logic to get a spot on their pilgrimage and not abiding by the laws of the land that they set up, Mulani is questioning what the characters should do and what actions they should take at this point. This is something they have never encountered before with no clear path, so what path do they trend? Also, this scene with Mulani is much better. This scene with Mulani, sorry, script error. The scene with Mulani is much better than the previous one because she apologizes to Mavorika and understands what her faults are in the scene. She was being immature. She was being driven by emotion instead of well, a dumb child mindset that doesn't think for a second. Anyways, Mavorika explains they found a way of attacking the main energy source of Natlan, which is the Sacred Flame, making the people of Natlan have to weigh the options of two decisions: either sending more troops into the Abyss, which could lead to more casualties, or stop the Night Wooden Dance from happening. However, that would weaken the Sacred Flame, allowing them to counterattack and more brutally and rapidly. This is a forced ultimatum on the people of Natlan, as people try to bring up ways of still strengthening the fire, but they all get shot down and explained by Mavorika about how it doesn't work and how it would prove fruitless, which I appreciate. Mavorika is being set up to be an Archon that is pretty knowledgeable and smart. He understands battle techniques and explains them clearly, but this could bring about needless and overwhelming exposition. But so far that hasn't happened yet, so like, I'll keep that back in the line anyways. Mavorika then explains those trapped in the Night Kingdom will slowly lose their sense of self, ultimately being lost to the Sea of Souls. This sense of urgency is something that doesn't really exist in the other regions until the very end of the Archon quest, other than like maybe in Azuma, but not really. So having it here was a really nice change of pace and tone. Anyways, after that, we decided to split up into two teams. Mavorika will focus on keeping the flame alit and try to find a solution from that part, and Team 2 will dispatch into the Night Kingdom and search for Kachina. Team 1 approaches the Sacred Flame as Team 2 decides to skedaddle and get a stone, I think Spirit Breaker Stone? I don't know. I have it written down here somewhere later, so I'll say that later. Anyways, Mavorika decides to sacrifice her power to sustain the fire a little longer, revealing that the pilgrimage is not actually a sustainable fuel source to the flame. Kanich, who we actually learn is a person who weighs sacrifices and two choices, interjects with this decision, but Mavorika responds with a simple sentence: those chosen by the Wyup have already embarked on their destined path. It's up to them to decide how our journey will end, not us. Once again, reinforcing the idea of the next generation and long-standing fighting of the people of Natlan, while also showing that Mavorika had a plan. This destined plan she shows off, like, shows that she has knowledge of something more than she lets on.
The Archon of Natlan. A force to be reckoned with.
Alright, time for a pretty hot take. Now, look, I praised the Mulani versus Kachina fight. I narrated the entire thing. So what are my thoughts on this almost 8-minute fight? Not great. Okay, look, now, before anyone gets angry at this, I have to clarify one thing. The battle was exceptionally choreographed and animated by the Genshin animation team. It was a feast for the eyes, and that's undeniable. Undoubtedly, it's Genshin's best cutscene to date. However, in terms of narrative, it served little to no purpose at all. Kachina's battle with Mulani served to reveal the truth to Kachina, who was trapped in her own lie for so long. However, here there's nothing but spectacle, in my opinion. It serves to show how strong Capitano is, and his introduction to the story maybe. It can be argued on how strong Mavorika is, and to reveal that there is a traitor among them, which all could have been either not shown or revealed later in a different fashion. There is no battle of ideals, there's no foreshadowing on their connection to with one another and the Fatui and Capitano. In general, it just doesn't play a part in the Archon quests. Again, not to say I didn't enjoy this fight when I first saw it, but it was all spectacle and no substance, which I far prefer for fights. Before anyone brings it up, and it's not written down on my script, so, yeah, Capitano mentions the 500-year plan, but it's, like, subtle, so subtle that it doesn't really matter. And we learn about it in the first Archon quest anyway, so what was the point, really? The earlier foreshadowing I brought up could have served a purpose. Anyways, that was my thoughts. Yeah, that's it. The final clash of the Archon and Capitano's fight caused a massive explosion heard by our second team, but they decide to ignore it and soldier on ahead, believing in their Archon's power. We receive the Spirit Breaker Stone and learn more about Chaska and what she does. And now that Chaska's a trivial part of the story, sorry if I said that name wrong, by the way, I feel like I should mention the biggest controversy surrounding Natlan and its characters. The whitewashing controversy. Now I know, okay, damn, I know. Some of you really don't care about this, but I feel like I should at least speak on this topic because if this video just gets views, there's probably, I don't know, gonna be some mention of it. And I kind of want to talk about this. So here's my thoughts. I agree on both sides. For one, the people who are angry at the false reputation of African people and their argument of not taking the people being insulting and odd is true. It's really weird to take almost everything, including names of deities, but not the people. A tweet that made me think said something like this: "We find everything about your culture interesting, except you." This tweet made me view the entire controversy differently. Not only in a realistic sense, but overall. Of course, it's weird that characters who live in humid and hot environments do not have melanin skin, and while I undoubtedly hold negative feelings for this change, I said that if the characters were interesting, then maybe I could overlook this. But that won't be tackled in this video. That will be answered in the last Natlan review video. I felt as if anything including Natlan had to tackle this controversy at least a little bit, so that was my thoughts. I'm sorry if it didn't reveal much. This is a review, not a political statement. Anywho's, this whole thing aside, we returned to Team 2, who had now acquired the Spirit Breaker Stone. So we set out to seek a certain someone, a person who we learned has lost a dear friend, another legendary warrior of Natlan, Vichama. We ask him to help us use the Spirit Breaker Stone, which he accepts in one condition. He asks to use the stone to look for his lost friend as well, which we learned earlier. After not even a second of thinking, Mulani and Kachina accepts this condition, seeing it as a fair trade. Vichina explains that we need to collect specific things for them and to set up this whole thing. And we do that and learn about Vichama and his unfortunate fate of his friend Malko. I think that's how you say it. The duo was once a formidable team. Malko had the brawn to stand against and fight back the Abyss, and Vichama had the brains to analyze and support his allies from the battlefield. One day, while they were on the same team to fight against the Abyss launched an attack of their own, injuring Vichama. Unable to go out to battle, Vichama stayed behind as Malko and his team set out to strike against the Abyss. However, they were attacked by a horde of abyssal monsters, far more than they would have ever speculated, resulting in their death and defeat. Vichama blamed himself for their deaths. After that, a huge personal lore job. I feel like we shouldn't have beared witness to. We undergo the ritual to receive Kachina's ancient name, which we succeed on easily, by the way. But Vichama pushes it, trying to dive deep into the depths of the bottomless sea that is the Night Warden, or the Abyss. Desperately trying to find the ancient name left over from his once dear friend, yet he couldn't find it. The Abyss continues to grow stronger, and the Traveler cannot sustain the Abyss any longer. Casca decides to destroy the stone, breaking the link with the Abyss and the real world. In the aftermath, Vichama remained devastated that his friend was truly gone, but in his hand was one purple-colored crystal. The crystal bombarded everyone there with Malko's final moments. His words were simple, they were sweet, and directed towards Vichama. Don't be sad. Keep on living for the both of us. After hearing those words, Vichama addresses the smile Malko had in his moments are fake, saying that even if he were to go back in time, he would follow Malko into a doomed battle. Life has regrets. Most people want to go back in time and fix those regrets. Yet they never have the time to go back and fix it. So the current generation should take up the chance by the horn and fix the future situations that may turn into regrets. This message, in my opinion, flows quite well with the last message of leaving the battle to the future generations. It follows the same ground point while stretching its idea to its limits. So let's see if the rest of the story can hold up its message.
I've never been strong or special at all, really. So I don't blame anyone for forgetting about me or leaving me behind. Just knowing you care is more than enough. I'll find a way back. You don't have to put yourselves in danger to come rescue me.
Kachina has been shown to be someone with incredible strength, but lacking in the confidence to wield it correctly. And while the first section in the story was used to prove that she is someone strong and worth praising as a hero of Natlan, this section feels like a way of teaching one important lesson, which ties back to a quote Mulani said very early on. An ancient saying of Natlan, the phrase is only a few short words long. No one fights alone. While Kachina is strong, she should not expect to be someone special to be considered worth saving. Mavarika herself describes herself as nothing special. Fighting by yourself, keeping up a mask of confidence and bravery shouldn't be the path you take. Mulani confronts this false mask and tears it down, telling Kachina that she isn't someone that should be abandoned or someone that has to fight alone. When confronted by Mulani, Kachina expresses her true feelings, the fear, her yearning for the path home. One last time, Mulani confirms that she is no burden. She is not someone that holds them back, that they are no longer going to leave anyone behind. Kachina stops shedding her tears and speaks one line of dialogue. Be careful. With that, there's a new team 3-1, they set off to find Kachina and enter the Night Kingdom, which exists under Natlan, where we get lore on the dragons, that dragons used to rule an ancient human civilization, and human civilization only set up after the fall of the dragons. Anyways, nothing interesting happens in the story, but what's interesting is we get a gameplay section. After the gameplay drought of Fontane's, having so much gameplay section in the story has been a breath of fresh air. Same for Sumeru, by the way, and this could also go for stuff like, I think most of the story, actually. After destroying our way through many different monsters, we arrive at a tear in space, which leads us to the Night Kingdom. Upon entering, we journey our way through the Night Kingdom, being helped by a tattered version of Malko, who had been put back together slightly by the stone, Spirit Breaker Stone, until we encounter Kachina, who is being attacked by not only the abyssal monsters, but the Night Kingdom itself. Luckily, Mulani is there to pull Kachina out of her trance-like state enough to defeat the monsters in front of her. After reuniting, Kachina asks us to help the Wyub, the thing that we talked about early in the video and that chooses the ancient name. Anyways, we understand the Wyubs have pillars acting as their main body, and tons of other pillars extend their consciousness throughout the Night Kingdom. However, the Wyub has now been corrupted by the Abyss, causing harm to not only the Wyub swarm, but the Ode of Resurrection. By the way, this further proves that my criticism about the two idiots were substantial, because if they can infect the Wyub, then they could surely infect the Ode of Resurrection. So those two idiots just look more like idiots and only look like plot devices to further the plot or make everyone go against, which, by the way, nothing appeared out of. So, like, yeah, it's peak writing over there, guys. Anyways, so yeah, Kachina begs our help to help the Wyub, and Malko stays behind and tries to prevent a monster chasing them to catch up to them. We all arrive at the Wyub, but to their surprise, the monster had caught up easily, implying that he purged Malko's presence, insulting and attacking Kachina, using her weakness of self-doubt and pity to try demoralize her and put her down. Luckily, there was someone there for her.
Courage we have to stand before you and not back down? It comes from our friendship. The power lies not in the ideal itself, but in our commitment to upholding that ideal, and in our decision to stand together and fight!
After Mulani and Kachina thoroughly hands the abyssal monster's butt back to him, Mulani gets new information of the Hydro Archon's plan, as discussed earlier, and together we all heal the Wyub. I get it, I'm glossing over things really quickly here, but this video is long enough as it is. It's 47 minutes. I don't think you want to hear more of this. where Kachina tells the Wyab after it's healed that she's going to keep improving herself and that one day she'll live up to the hero the Wyab saw in her. However, the Wyab just answers back that Kachina is already deserving of her ancient name and that her ancient name shouldn't defy her. Kachina is too busy trying to fit an invisible standard when she herself has already been fit of bearing her ancient name. Hell, it's even shown earlier. Kachina is scared out of her mind, and being trapped in the Night Kingdom for a few hours, wanted to do nothing more first than help the Wyab from its suffering. After that overdose of positivity, the Abyss thought, I don't like that, and decided to cause the entire place to collapse, culminating into the last action-heavy portion of the story. Thank God. A chase scene-ish. Everyone dashes through the path towards the light, evading falling debris and large rocky pillars. As the light starts to fade, they try to one last attempt to reach out for the ever-decreasing light, only for it to close shut in the last second. Seeming like there was no other way out, seeming like they were trapped, the roof of the cave suddenly starts to crack and shatter, ultimately breaking apart like it was glass, the Pyro Archon standing in the middle of that monumental site. After that, it's mostly exposition about the Pyro Archon's plan, as I mentioned before, and how Mavarika is actually really, really old. The plan was set 500 years ago by the current Pyro Archon, and that she herself was that Pyro Archon, dwelling in the sacred flame until the time of her resurrection has finally arrived. There is more to it than that, but this isn't a story cap, this is a review. The thing I want to focus on mainly is the scene alone with the Pyro Archon, and in my opinion, relates a lot to time, at least from what it's saying. Now, time is a concept brought up by Mavarika a lot, like in her more common moments, or calm, I guess you could say. It's brought up by Mavarika before heading off to the Night Kingdom, and I feel like it might play a vital role into Mavarika as a character. As I mentioned before, she mentioned it twice already, and in her eyes, the past, present, and the future all exist in the same time. So think of it like the Eren Yeager's plane of existence, or whatever that thing is called. And the thing that is seemingly placed great importance on is the future and the past, and the stories, predictions, fate, all mentioned, all talked about. So far, there is little to lacking of knowledge for me to be able to piece together anything right now, or I'm just too tired. Either way, something that seems to be prominent in this time element is the sacrifices that a human has to make in a war, and the time they lose with others. It's a story about the human sacrifice for the survival of people, and also one about legacy and the human itself alongside their determination and grit. Maybe it's a story about Mavarika's character is trying to tell. A character that drives into the human sacrifices and loss of time, but also the human's determination and confidence to live on and prevail. After that dream sequence, which I very much might be overthinking, we arrive at the final party scene, which makes me want to express a theory that I've had about Pyro Archon's mentality when I was writing this part of the script. So, enjoy. Mavarika might be someone who thinks that they have to hold the burden of the plan she thought up alone. She was finding contempt with losing her family. It was harsh, but she eventually came to understanding this decision. However, when it came to asking other warriors of her time, she thought about it as too cruel. This idea of a human Archon has weighed Mavarika down to a symbol, and that she thinks she has to do everything to maintain that symbol alone. Maybe one of her future arcs will be to trust and divide her plan and wait to others and those she trusts. After all, in Natlan, no one fights alone. There are other things that support this. This is me throwing my ball into court and making stuff up on the spot. By the way, there's nothing in my script here. In Kachina's belittling from the Abyssal Monster, it mentions, why is the Pyro Archon so much stronger while you, Kachina, remain weak? Well, I might be overlooking it. It could also show this very similarities in Mavorika and Kachina. Sure, Mavorika is extremely strong, and sure, she's an Archon. However, she having this mask of a symbol really relates to what Kachina thought she had to keep as a confident hero-type warrior, showing that you don't have to keep up this mask. You don't have to not be human for you to be worthy or useful, I guess. It's this whole thing of Natlan no one fights alone, which I very much think will take center stage future on. And that's pretty much where Natlan 5.0 ends. For this conclusion, I feel like so far Natlan has been an amazing step up from Fontane and Sumeru, respectively in terms of enjoyabilities, characters, and overall gameplay. Covering this massive review has been time-consuming, but also really entertaining to make and dive into, and from the version 5.1 livestream, it seems like the Genshin team has no intention of slowing down anytime soon. And you know I'm not gonna miss out on covering it. I have been FFG Mania, and thank you so much for watching this goddamn review. I'll see you in the next update, probably.